Welcome back. You're watching Law and Crime, and we are on a morning break in the state of Minnesota versus Kim Potter. She is the former police officer accused of 2 counts of manslaughter in the shooting death of Dante Wright during a traffic stop earlier this year. When we come back from the break in that case, when court resumes, we'll hear closing arguments from the defense for Kim Potter. But there are closing arguments also underway in the federal trial, the sex trafficking trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, the former companion of Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender. Maxwell is facing a number of charges, and the government's closing argument has wrapped up in that case. And joining us to discuss this is a man who's been in the courtroom the entire time, Law&Crime.com managing editor Adam Klasfeld. Adam, thanks so much for coming out and talking with us during the morning break. How are things going in the courthouse down there, and what were the government's closing arguments like?
Well, it's been a whirlwind trial, Anjanette. We were expecting this to be a kind of 6-week affair. Here we are in the beginning of the 4th week, and the government has just concluded its summation under the theme of it is time to hold Ghislaine Maxwell accountable. That's the pitch that Assistant U.S. Attorney Alison Moe brought to jurors, saying that Maxwell targeted her alleged victims, seizing upon any vulnerability. We've heard multiple stories and accounts from witnesses saying that they grew up in households where one had a father who had just died, another had a mother who was an alcoholic. The prosecutor said that these stories, it was no accident that these patterns emerged. She also argued it's no accident that 3 of Ghislaine Maxwell's accusers have said that she had touched their breasts, that this was stories that match each other's. They went through the extensive evidence we've heard over the weeks, corroborating important details of each accuser's story. For example, we heard from Jane that the first meeting happened at Interlochen, a prestigious academy in Michigan. Now, we saw that backed up by flight records. We saw that backed up by testimony by certain witnesses, including Jeffrey Epstein's former pilots. And so this is the time when prosecutors put all of the pieces of the puzzle together. They look into the statutes, including the sex trafficking statute, the Mann Act violations, and try to lead jurors through the evidence that we saw and try to anticipate and undermine the defense's arguments that they've been making the entire time. To give you one example, a commonly quoted phrase from the defense opening statement was that this is a case about memory, manipulation, and money. And the prosecutor, quoting that very remark, said, "We agree with the defense on that, but it's not in the way that Ghislaine Maxwell's defense counsel said it. This is a story about memory, about the searing memories of childhood sexual abuse." She said that it is about money, quoting testimony by one of the accusers that she received hundreds of dollars every time she gave Jeffrey Epstein a massage that escalated into sexual assault. So kind of taking that defense argument, anticipating it, and flipping it for the jurors, and who are now on a recess and will hear the defense case after the break.
You know, and just so our viewers are clear on this, you know, the reason we're showing you photographs kind of on the screen now is because this is happening in federal court, and cameras are not allowed in federal court, unfortunately. But Adam, you know, this is a high stakes case for the government because Jeffrey Epstein, in what was an incredibly embarrassing incident for the U.S. government, died by suicide in his jail cell while in federal custody back in 2019. So really any level of accountability as far as the government is concerned and as far as the accusers are concerned will come from a conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell.
And that's absolutely correct. And as a matter of fact, I am standing right now practically in the shadow of the very jail where Jeffrey Epstein was found dead. That's right next to the courtroom where Ghislaine Maxwell is being tried. That history hangs heavy over this case. The fact that the This is a trial a quarter century in the making. The allegations date back to 1994, a fact that the defense seizes upon again and again to try to attack the accuser's memories. Just shows how laden this case is with history. And one of the pieces of evidence that the prosecution brought forward is the photographs of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein over the years, at different ages, different hairstyles. You can see the passage of time. The defense tried to keep these images out because they are undated, but you can tell in the sequence of images that these weren't one-offs. This isn't, as the defense tries to paint it, someone who had a distant relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. These are intimate photographs over a series of years that the prosecutors entered into evidence to show the history of the case and to show the history of these two people and how close they were.
And Adam, just briefly, I think we would all have loved to have heard from Ghislaine Maxwell to hear her explanation for all of this, the allegations, what these young girls have said. One said that, Ghislaine Maxwell massaged her chest, her bare chest. But Maxwell didn't take the stand. And why do you think that is, just from you being in the courtroom and observing all of this?
Well, of course, what Ghislaine Maxwell said was, Your Honor, the government did not prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt, so there is no need for me to testify. Now, if you take a longer look at the case, there's reasons to treat that explanation skeptically. She sat for a civil deposition long before this trial began that inspired two perjury counts that are not being heard by the jury at this time. The case has essentially been severed. Those two counts will be heard separately. But it shows that the last time she sat for sworn deposition, it backfired on her. And that must have been hovering in the background. We, of course, aren't privy to the internal huddling between her and her lawyers, but that must have been taken into account. And there were a number of embarrassing things that came during that deposition testimony. Of course, it is always a risk for a criminal defendant to take the stand, especially when you have seasoned prosecutors embarking on cross-examination. So while we can't really speak to what her private legal huddling was over it, it would have been a very fraught decision to take the stand, and very understandable why she sought to avert it.
Interesting. One more question, just based on how you've watched this trial unfold, and it seems like it's moved rather quickly. And I know I'm asking you to speculate here, but do you think this will be a lengthy deliberation?
Well, we are hitting up against the Christmas holiday. It is quite possible that jurors will want to go home to their families, and this has been a very quick case. The government was up and they closed their case in a couple of weeks, and the defense had presented and closed their case in a couple of days. So it's not a tremendous amount of evidence that they're inspecting, and a major holiday coming up. So that could speak to a short deliberation, but then again, it's anybody's guess.
It really is anybody's guess. But I think that Christmas holiday, a lot of those jurors the ones who celebrate Christmas, maybe some of them don't celebrate Christmas. They may be Jewish and what have you. But a lot of people are going to want to get out of that courtroom by the end of the week. And who knows, they could always come back next week, too, if they're struggling with this. How much time does she face if convicted, Adam?
So on these charges alone, she faces the possibility of a maximum 70-year sentence if convicted on all charges. She will be turning 60 years old on December 25th. That will be her 60th birthday on Christmas Day.
Wow. Well, that is very interesting. Ghislaine Maxwell potentially celebrating her 60th birthday behind bars if convicted. Obviously, if she is acquitted, she would be able to walk out of there a free woman. But wow, the symbolism there could be really something given the outcome of what happens in this case. And Adam, what's it like, just briefly, we have less than a minute left in this segment. What's it been like in that courtroom? I mean, is it a heavy feeling in there? Or, I mean, I've read reports that Ghislaine Maxwell seemed upbeat at times.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that we see from Ghislaine Maxwell, she's very engaged with her defense. She appears relaxed, confident. She's facing the prospect of potential effective life imprisonment, but you don't see it from her demeanor. That said, there has been very powerful grueling testimony from 4 accusers, extensively corroborated in certain respects and details. And there's reason for tension, but she's not showing it on her face.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTube TV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTube TV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTube TV. We put you in the jury box.